Hey, hey.
How'd you get along today?
Get a hearing on minimum wage.
Nice.
Don't forget to record.
It's recording.
It is. Great.
Mhm. All right, well, my clock shows it's 12 o'clock, so why don't we go ahead and get started. I'm Todd O'Hair, President and CEO of the Montana Chamber of Commerce, and I'm reporting today from Paradise Valley, which this week that has been a misnomer. We're, like most places in Montana, we're in the teens below zero, and we've got about a foot of snow here, and Bridger's been continuing to whack away at our legislative priorities in the legislative session. And so this is our weekly call where we summarize this week, take a look at next week, and kind of see where the Montana Chamber is with its priorities. And so Bridger Mahlum is our government director, and he leads our efforts on the government affairs front. And Bridger, how'd things go this week in the Montana legislature?
Yeah, Todd, it was probably the busiest week as far as bill volume yet. And that makes sense given that we are officially on day 30. And if the legislature decides to use all 90 of its allotted days, that means we are, if my math is correct, and oftentimes it's not, we are 1/3 of the way through this. And so basically we're at a point now where if some big bills aren't introduced within the next 8 or so days, at least those that don't have a revenue impact on them, that they may not get that hearing. And so we're going to see a lot more bills coming through the pike pretty quick. But yeah, it was another productive week in the legislature, Todd.
Can you hit on some of the big bills that that are working its way through this legislature this week?
Yeah, Todd, we were super busy. So a few things that stand out as far as bills we supported included a couple bills related to a workforce that Representative Fred Anderson of Great Falls, we've been working with him since before the session on, and these are two bills that would remove what we believe are unnecessary barriers to encourage work-based learning opportunities and getting businesses more engaged to do that. And so one of them clarifies who has work comp responsibility with a work-based student learner. Is it the business or is it the school? This bill is supposed to set out that with each individual case, there has to be certainty on who's doing that, negotiated between the parties. And so that's not left up in the air anymore. If this bill passes, which we've heard from employers would be a good certainty when it comes to inviting young people to the workplace to inspire their careers. And same with a related bill that would allow students starting at the age of 16 to get more hands-on experience in the workplace if they have very close direct supervision. So again, this just goes back to workforce development. It's a core component of our Envision 2026 10-year strategic plan, and being able to help facilitate and or provide the resources necessary to get that going. And so those were a couple good bills this week. Of course, what many folks have probably picked up on if they pay attention to the legislature even somewhat is that many of the Governor Gianforte tax bills as part of his Montana Comeback Plan were heard for the first time this week in their respective committees. And we stood up on most of those bills in support. We've talked about them on these videos in the past, so I would encourage folks to check out the back catalog on our YouTube channel to learn more about what each of those bills do. But exciting progress for what we believe as a taken in the whole, these 5 or so bills we believe are going to send a strong message that Montana is open for business. We want your investment, And we're excited to work with you to create new jobs and spur economic growth in this state. So Todd, I'd say those are a few things we supported this week that we're really excited about. Of course, part of what we do, and it's almost just as much of our political capital, is being spent on making sure that bad business bills don't get any further than they need to in this process. And so we were involved in a few bills that we thought would not be the best message for business and making Montana a more attractive place to do that. We rose in respectful opposition to a mandatory paid family leave program that would have required all employers, regardless of size and circumstance, to put into an insurance fund on paid family leave. We felt that, again, that the fact that it's such a workforce market in favor of the workers, that they have the ability to make more demands of their employers if employers want to keep their good talent. And we want to make sure that that can be evaluated by the employer on a case-by-case basis. And we made the same argument today, Todd, this morning on a minimum wage bill. And we've been involved in these bills every time, and minimum wage increases, we believe, again, are just create an artificial pressure on the business to have to raise the prices of their goods sold, when we believe that investing in skills, trades education, as well as letting the market set the wage rate, are better approaches to actually creating real wage growth in the state of Montana. Those are the highlights from this week, Todd.
So that family leave bill, that had some pretty onerous sort of components to it, right, Bridger? I mean, I think there was like allowing up to 12 weeks for an employee to take off time. And this was particularly harmful for the smaller businesses that, would be looking at a situation where they might have somebody, out of their workplace for months at a time.
Yeah, Todd, it should be noted that, many folks are aware that there is a federal law that allows for up to that amount of time of what I believe is unpaid family leave. But the caveat with the federal law is that only applies to businesses that have more than 50 employees. And I suffice to say, Todd, that there's probably some good reasons why it doesn't apply to smaller business, because we're talking about every employee having essentially a very important daily role in the work that they're doing, especially in these very small mom and pop shops. And to set out the program as it was in this bill, House Bill 228, there were just a lot of issues with how that would work for a small business and how they would actually be able to afford to handle it.
Great, thanks, Bridger. Chamber priorities. How are we doing on the issues that we had identified coming into this session that were top priorities for this organization?
Todd, Senate Bill 65, our COVID liability protections bill. Folks are probably getting tired of hearing about it by now, but this is the legislative process. It is a process, and there's been an update about every week. But happy to say that Governor Gianforte, in his first bill signing ceremony of major consequence, featured our Senate Bill 65 and getting that signed this week. Really exciting news for Montana's business community. And this is worth taking a moment to celebrate, because now we have joined several other states that are sending a strong message to the business community about legal certainty when it comes to this unpredictable issue that we're all still navigating. And frankly, we aren't sure how long it'll still be with us. And so to have some legal protections will help reopen our economy. Senate Bill 65 was signed, really great news. One more update on another priority bill of the chambers. We talked about this a little bit in last week's video, was our amendments and changes to the Wrongful Discharge Act, an important employment law bill that we're moving through the process, House Bill 254. That was passed out of the House this week and has been transmitted to the Senate. And so we have some good momentum behind us to, again, reasonable employment law changes that we think are going to be another factor in helping a business determine that Montana is the place for them.
Great.
So those are the highlights for sure.
Yeah, that's super. And so what about next week? What do you see on the docket for next week that is going to be occupying a lot of our time and focus.
Yeah, next week, Todd, I could see that potentially a couple of our other priority bills will be introduced, and we'll go into more detail with those once that happens, and we'll have an opportunity next Friday to discuss a little bit more about what those do. There are two more liability tort reform related bills, again, that we hope will help make our legal environment more predictable for business. But outside of those, I was looking today at the hearing schedule next week. And of course, I just anticipate that this bundle of paper here is going to at least double in size even by the weekend when they have more bills scheduled. But we're certainly going to continue to monitor the conversation about right to work. A bill to do just that is scheduled for hearing on what I believe it's Tuesday, House Bill 251, implement right to work. We're going to continue to monitor the action on that important conversation that's going to take place in this legislature. As well as we also pay attention to what's going on as far as legislation that impacts utilities, because electricity costs, garbage disposal, et cetera, those are all costs of doing business. And if we're finding that utilities are unduly impacted by legislative decisions, those costs and increased costs as a result can be passed down to the consumer, which is oftentimes a business. And so another bill we're going to be taking a hard look at this week is to deregulate the trash and waste management in utility industry. And we have to really look hard at what the consequences of doing that might be and what it might mean, especially for rural garbage cleanup and being able to hit all the customers that need that essential service. So those are a couple highlights of what I see coming up next week, but we'll certainly be seeing a lot more.
So this is a big bunch of issues that we're tracking here, all the way from liability protection to garbage disposal. And so I think it probably gives a lot of insight into the fact that, there's a lot of different bills moving through the legislature that can have direct and indirect impacts on the business community. So thanks for that update. We'll stop the recording now, and we'll be able to open this up for anybody that has any questions about bills that they've heard about over the last week, or the rumors they may be hearing about coming up for the upcoming week. So we'll just